6, but
6.
who's counting?
It's pretty amazing, though.
Yeah. Yeah, and there was one, we made one very tall, thin alien out of parts and pieces, and we kind of stretched it out just to make it look cooler. And that one's getting blown up left and right constantly. We patch it up, put squibs in it and shoot it again, drive over it, crush its head, fix it, do it again.
Wow. And is it true, I read this story, and maybe you know it, that the final scene with the alien queen in the room, where you had all the bodies and the eggs all around, that you guys built that in like a warehouse someplace in London, and that they left the set there, that no one struck it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No one struck that
until another film was shooting there. You guys know this?
No, which set are you thinking?
In the Queen's egg chamber.
Yeah.
I can imagine there was some goop left over.
Well, the interior of the atmosphere processing station was a power station called Acton Power Station, and it was used in Batman and piles of movies. And they left some of the set dressing, but that some of the junk glued to the walls to make it look like futuristic stuff. But
the story I heard is that some of the bodies or whatever that were like entombed in the walls, that they didn't strike them.
Oh, it
and
might be.
The next thing that shot there was Batman, and then they came in to prep for Batman, like, holy fuck, what are these things on the wall?
It's possible, yeah.
Anyway,
They save money by not striking.
I told you it was no budget.
so
We can curse here?
I apologize for any children that are still. Lance, you can curse. I looked into it.
Now you're talking.
Well, one of the things I want to talk about is, to me, like, beyond the effects and the great script and everything, I think what makes this movie so great are the characters and the performances. And, like, to me, Jaws and this are the gold standard in terms of, like, I'm a writer, and when you go on meetings and stuff that people reference in terms of, like, okay, we want to be like this. Aliens is the one that always comes up when you have a team, when you have, like, a group of characters, because I feel like all you guys are such great characters, and you really did care about everybody. I mean, I was so bummed when Burke was a bastard, because I'm like, I like that guy.
Well,
like, he's a nice guy.
let's talk about that. That's your perspective, and that's fine. I don't see it that way. In a workplace, accidents happen. It's not uncommon. But first of all, Jim casts really cleverly, and then, as Ricco said, he lets the actors play. I mean, Bill Paxton, God bless him, I mean, he took that role and knocked it out of the park. I mean, and people walk around and isn't it, what's the line? The line of his, that's a movie now.
Game Over, Man?
Yeah, Game Over, Man. It's like, that's because he said that. I don't even think that was in the script. That was just Bill being Bill, and he's kind of, he was wonderful, and we miss him.
I had met him because he worked for Corman's. That's where Jim knew him from. He's in Terminator. But I was walking through the hallway in the production office, and he had done a audition for the part, and he knew Jim. It was the same sort of deal. He goes, I don't know if I got the part, man. I don't know. I said, oh, you absolutely have. I didn't know. I just made it go. So he always remembered that because you and Bill got the best lines. Bad
language. Was that in the script?
Some of you might disagree with that.
Well, the funny.
What are we going to use, man? Harsh language?
Yeah. Was that in the script?
Yeah.
But it was a great, because you guys are here, it was a great cast, and Jim is really good at defining characters. They don't all, like a lot of movies, to me, they tend to blend together. Jim really sort of nailed each character. They're their own individual person. And everybody sort of redeems themselves, well, except for
Let's discuss.
Well, I heard one of the things which sounded so smart is that I heard they shot the beginning stuff where you meet the characters at the end of the shoot, and so you guys knew each other fairly well at that point. No? Is that not true? Oh, the internet.
Yeah, I was gonna say, no, we knew, yeah.
What's that?
No, we knew each other. No, we got time to rehearse before they started shooting, so it was like a couple of weeks, which is very unusual.
Yeah, a little boot camp, maybe.
Camp.
Yeah, you guys you trained with the British Army or something?
British sergeant or something like that. Some British sergeant.
Two of the stuntmen who were in the film, Warbowski and I can't remember the other one, but they were in the SAS, the British SAS. So they trained us in urban warfare and arms, you know, shooting guns, things like that, things that I had never done. So.
And I came in way after that, and these guys were all like bonding, and they were great friends. They had all this cool equipment, and I was just like the asshole with a notebook. I had nothing. I just had nothing to do. So I was already outside, just showing up. I was already the odd guy.
It was true. And then Sigourney showed up. She was working on another film in Europe, and so she also kind of came in. But we had all been hanging out with each other. And Ricco and me and Mark, who played Drake, and a lot of the other ones who were hired locally. So we would take Bill and Lance around. Yeah, and Michael wasn't there yet, but take them out and, you know, take them over to our apartments, our flats, and go out with them. So we had already bonded even before the film had started.
Let's talk about, Bishop's such an iconic character, and I think it's such a fine line because you're playing an android that doesn't really have emotions, but it's like he's such a human character that makes you care so much about him that when he gets ripped in half, it's so heartbreaking at the end. Do you want to talk about sort of creating that performance and kind of what your intentions were?
I came up with a new joke about how did you create that performance? You know, a lot of tension in it and everything else, and I said, well, I lost my cell phone. That's what I was using. I got no numbers, I can't find anybody, you know. That didn't happen, but I'm just saying. Because I've been thinking about the whole language we use about how we do our work. So,
Don't tell them.
getting back to the subject.
Keep it to yourself, but don't tell them your secrets.
You know what, I mean, I use some odd things, and they mostly were from my childhood. Because I figured Bishop had the emotional life of a 12-year-old. And in the sense that he forgave you because he's going to know he's going to outlive you. So I'll forgive you. And then the other thing, you know, things like that, where I wanted to, what? Not a bad idea,
That's really
is it?
funny.
No.
I never thought the 12-year-olds are looking at us going, I'm going to
They are.
outlive you. That's why they're smiling. Now I get it.
I even went so far as to, before I got to London, Jim had called me and said, we want to introduce Bishop in a certain way, and like playing that knife thing. And knowing him, I had to get every knife I could find of a different style and work with it, because I had a month. So when I got there, they opened my suitcase, and there the knives were. And it was IRA era, right? So they weren't going to let me in the country. Gail, I think, got me out, you know, but anyway, and I kept my knives. Because I said, we're doing a movie, I'm not going to kill anybody.
Do you remember the lenses? The lenses that you brought?
The what?
The contact lenses that you had designed? Do you remember that? You had this, you were so excited. You had
Cat eye?
No, you had like these, you had
The eyes.
yeah, contact lenses with
Yeah,
two pupils on them.
I spent my last $1,500 on a sclerals for my eyes. That I figured that when Bishop got excited, he would have two pupils in each eye. And Jim said, "Oh, let me see, put them on." And I put them on, and he said, "Okay, we'll try it. We'll shoot it tomorrow."
Did you?
Yeah, he shot it. And then he came to me the next morning and said, "It looks scarier than the fucking alien. We're not using it." Anyway, I just went overboard at trying to find details that I could hang on to as an actor, you know, so, and that was one of them. I even got some holographic labels for my character, and he said, "Well, they're not holographic if we're shooting them with film. They're flat. It looks like you printed it." I think all movies are an adventure, and the more you can, you know, connect and try things and search. It's a search, an adventure and a search. And when you get lucky enough to get work, it's even a better search than sitting and looking at yourself in the mirror going, making faces. I mean, it's not about that. It's about living something. Anyway, did I answer your question?
Yeah. Jenette, watching the movie tonight, I was really struck is that I think the three biggest badasses in this movie are Ripley, Vasquez, and Newt. And it was really
Me?
and you.
No, he's a badass. No, I'm a servant. I wouldn't hurt a fly. Unless
You saved it.
unless you put my foot on your head.
But that's
That's weird.
But when they made this movie, that wasn't something that you often saw. I mean, Vasquez was such a badass. Like, what was the reaction you got from people? And did you get little girls that came up to you, and, like, after seeing this movie? And
Well, yeah. I mean, the thing that I wanted to do with her was not to make her into a superhero cartoon character. I wanted to make her into, because then that's no fun. You say, oh, well, she's a superhero. You know, I have the same opinion that James has about superheroes. There's no risk. There's nothing. You know, they're a superhero. She was a real person with something to lose, and she was, you know, she had nothing to lose. I mean, that's why she was so brave, or seemingly brave, and. The reaction was amazing. I mean, because this was during the 80s, and like women had to be likable, you know, all that kind of crap. And so I just said, I'm not going to make her likable, or you had to be relatable. They had to relate to you or something. And he said, don't worry about it. Just play her how you want to play her. I mean, he knew what my take was. But the reaction was amazing. There's, you know, little girls, little boys, gay men, straight men, lots of soldiers, and. Yeah, so she's an incredible character.
Yeah, speaking of which, though, being the year of the woman, James was so ahead on a lot of different things, not just on his movie making, but when you look at the casting of it, first of all, the lead, it was the first action female lead. All the badasses, as you said, were female. The little girl, out of all of her family, she's the one that survives. You know, I think he really was ahead of his time. And now we talk a lot about diversity in film and in the film industry, whereas James was there already. You know, I mean, think about this 40 years ago and the cast that he put together and how he put them together. Yeah. Not quite.
well, the original was 40 years ago. This was a little bit less.
Okay, so
But no, I think that's such a good point. Well, Paul, I wanted to ask you too about when Jenette was talking about likability, because I think that was the thing with your character. Like you said, I really liked your character when that twist happened, and I guess it was a slow twist because he kept doing stuff. But what was did that affect how you played him? Like, were you trying to be like early on, like, okay, we need to really like this guy?
No, well, you know, I mean, I joked that, like, hey, I didn't think I was doing a bad thing. I don't think I went up there to kill people. But so in my head, I had a very clear purpose. I was working for the company, and I was not with them. I was the corporate guy. But, you know, to whatever extent he wanted to put somebody who he thought would be likable or you wouldn't suspect, it didn't work at all. Because I remember sitting there, like, in the first 2 minutes, people go, that's the guy, that's it. Look for a trouble. It's like the guest star on Star Trek. Oh, he's going to be dead very soon. There's just something wrong right there. So, I mean, I didn't think that I was evil. I didn't think I was playing that. But I did think people did kind of catch on pretty quickly. Because the company man, you know, the company guy is always the bad guy. So there's nothing. So I would try, but from the very first scene, you know, when I think that's the line, right? I work for the company, but you know, I'm not a bad guy. It's like, yeah, you are.
But I also think that's why Paul's character was so effective, is because villains think they're just as justified by their action as the hero does about their action. So when you came on screen and you felt very justified in your actions, we believed you. And then later on, when we find out how bad your actions were, that's what's so evil about it. But you playing it the way you played it, I think, was the brilliance of it, is because you did not play like a bad guy.
Well, finish the thought.
I did.
Let's. I want to talk about Sigourney. So for those of you that don't know, Sigourney was nominated for a Best Actress Oscar for her performance in this movie, which is something that, I mean, rarely happens these days for movies that aren't just like serious dramas. I think it's such an amazing performance, and she's so great in this. What were all of your guys' experiences working with her?
Never worked with her again.
I didn't enjoy it. Did you enjoy it? No. She was a lead, she was such a leader on the set in every way. You know, she was so generous and strong, and she was in the first one. You know, she was it. But she was nothing but great. I mean,
Definitely a leader. She took care of everybody. We worked really long hours. It was really hard and cold, and it was hard work. And she stood up for everybody. You're beeping. There you go.
What? Wait, it's Full Metal Jacket just called. You're in. Run, baby.
Why did they sit me next to him? Why?
Matthew must be
You know what Cameron told us? Jim told her that I was a Nazi. Bishop was a Nazi.
Bishop, not you.
Right? Oh, okay. And because of the shit that happened in her other world. But, and then I'm looking at her, why does she treat me so shitty? I just dropped the cornbread, that's all I did. And through the whole movie, she's like looking at me like, hairy eyeball, get away from me, you smell like a skunk, did something to you, you know what I mean, that kind of shit.
Now, I think
And it hurt.
Sigourney was a leader, but it wasn't a kind of, she didn't lead in a kind of masculine way. I think she kind of led in a nurturing way. And I remember after the film was over with, I remember thinking, if I'm ever a big star, I want to be like her on set, because it was never, it's my show. It was very we. And I remember after the screening of it, we went to the Beverly Hills Hilton or something, and she had a little after party and invited the cast back. And my wife wasn't there. I was living in England at the time, and my wife was in England. I felt kind of bad. And she says, listen, come here. And she took me to a phone in her bedroom, and she says, call her. She says, it's on 20th Century Fox. and then I'm dialing, as I'm dialing, she goes out and she comes back in with a bottle of champagne for me to sit and talk to my wife. That's what I'm talking about. This woman was a giver.
That's awesome. Something that I read about,
You gotta be making money to do that, though.
It was on Fox. It was all on Fox.
something I read recently I didn't know, because Michael Biehn is so great in this movie as Hicks. I heard that he wasn't the actor that was originally cast, and I don't know for how long, but another actor, 2 weeks, okay. Can you guys, it's been a long time, can you guys talk about what happened? Was there...
Flip Wilson. It was Flip Wilson.
Does anybody know who the first Hicks was?
Yeah, it's not a
James Remond.
Who's a great actor.
Yeah.
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 James Remar, yeah.
And because in the movie, Hicks and I are really close friends, we're buddies, I really, James and I really kind of bonded, as an actor, you try and do that anyway. If you have a scene with somebody that you're supposed to be a good friend, you try and find that. And we did bond. And when he was removed from the film or left the film, I don't know how much we can get into what happened.
I think it's been a long time, you guys can talk about that.
But I remember really being a little pissed off by it. And then when the next day, all of a sudden, we get this new guy, and I'm thinking, no, And then when he started acting, he took a completely different way of doing it. I mean, James had this kind of smile on his face, this smirk, and he had this voice, and it was like a man's man. And then when it changed, I didn't feel him at all. And I remember I felt this was going to be a real challenge for me. But a week later, I got it, and it made me appreciate actors who make different choices, and that just because your choice is different doesn't mean that it's better or worse. It's a different choice, and it was completely different, but yet I could see how it worked in the end too. So I was really impressed by it.
And to his credit, Michael had worked with James Cameron before, so they had a rapport. But he literally flew in, went to the set, and jumped into the movie, and which is not easy to do.
He told me James called him up and says, "Listen, I got a part for you to play the lead in this movie. You got to be here in 24 hours, so the decision is yours." And he had 24 hours to get on the plane and come over, and he knocked it out of the park.
And not everybody
in
can
that
do
amount of
that.
time. Yeah, so Michael Biehn killed it.
Did you guys, in reshooting 2 weeks worth of stuff, were you guys happy that you got to have another crack at it, or were you like pissed? Feel like, okay, I did this, I already nailed it, and now we have to like do this again?
I was pissed, to be honest with you. I was pissed, and I didn't want to reshoot it because I felt like, if you do something, it's fresh and you get it right, but then redo it, it's kind of hard. And we didn't have to shoot everything over again, but we did have to shoot some scenes over again. And I
have an ex-wife and I would never redo it. I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean. There's a longevity, and it's been 40 years or 35 years or whatever it is, and we've all kept going, and we'll all keep going. I think I understand more about movies that I've done after I've done the movie, because I'm so busy doing it and trying to survive and getting over the knots in your stomach because you're facing something that you have to do. Well, afterwards, though, philosophies flow. It becomes its own generator of
It's got to be really something to be you, I would think. You're just an interesting cat. You are an interesting cat. No, you, Lance. You're just like a wise, sage.
You and I didn't get along at all.
No, we didn't, but we will soon.
He was saying shit to me like, I would talk about something and he'd go, what?
Yeah.
It was that constant like,
I meant that as a compliment, that just the magnitude
I said, driver, pull over, I want out.
Rico, help me out. I was
like
complimenting.
you very much.
And again, I meant it as a good thing, and I was
Paul, I
will say-
genuinely liked you.
I will say this. And when you're working on a film, there's a lot of downtime. It's rush to wait. And someone once asked on one of these panels what was the most enjoyable part about the movie. And one of the most enjoyable parts I found about the movie was the camaraderie that we had as our team of Marines. But also, just listen to this guy, just the way he sees life is very different. Paul.
just doing a job, just working for the company, Rico. Bring in the bacon.
I want to open up some questions, but I have a couple more for you guys. So, I want to talk about the loader. I mean, that's such an amazing sequence at the end. And again, I don't know how you guys fully did that. How much of that was miniature and how much of that was sort of puppeteering?
Well, if you watch the power loader, when they had a full-size mock-up that was actually vacuum plastic, and there was a bodybuilder inside, actually standing behind, Sigourney or whoever was here.
Let's act it out.
This is a scene I've never seen.
If you had an X-ray of it, that's what you would see.
Somebody behind it was moving.
He was inside of it. He was actually inside of it. And if you look, there's two yellow antennas that actually had cables going up, and they're disguised. You can barely see. I can see it because I know.
So when it's walking,
So
that's a
it's
guy.
full
That's a guy
size.
holding it? Okay.
And then we had a quarter scale miniature for the whole Queen and Power Loader fight that was this big and a whole set.
Was it lightweight that you
Yeah.
actually looked?
It was all vacuum formed. It was thin, it looked like metal, but it was actually thin
And there's
plastic.
some great sound effects that make.
Yeah, and it was our special effects guy who did all that stuff.
John Richardson.
John Richardson.
and his team.
Is that story true about Caterpillar trying to sue him?
I never heard that. I think they would love that, right? I think they must.
They did?
I can't imagine Gail would just.
Because
go,
I thought
"Let's
they
wing
came
it."
in with lawyers and everything else.
I don't know, maybe.
The story I heard was that Jim had notebooks from when he was in high school with all the drawings of that very machine. And when the lawyers came in, they all unpacked their briefcases and Jim handed them his notebook from high school. And
Well,
they
it's actually from
packed their shit up and left.
A magazine. It's from a magazine.
That's what I heard.
Yeah. In the 70s, because we're about the same age, and on Battle, we liked all the same technology and stuff. And I said, "Is the power loader from Analog Magazine?" He said, "Yeah."
Oh, I think there's also a major Matt Mason toy
Yeah.
from the 60s that was very similar. This was a NASA concept of enhanced, machinery that enhances your strength. So But he just built on it and turned it into like the caterpillar and the, you know, with the rotating light. He just made it very industrial. And he's I think one of his geniuses is that he can scan the landscape and like pick out little shining objects and put them all together in a brand new, fresh way that just dazzles you. My daughter is here, and I don't think she's ever seen any films that I've ever worked on. And she saw the end of this scene. She's like, "How the heck did you do this?" She didn't say heck. She swears. But how is that? What is that? You know. So she's full of these questions, which I'll be answering. Honey, later tonight when I'm talking to you, after bedtime stories. If you're not too scared, I'll tell you exactly how it's done.
Well, Alec, I mean, there's so many things in the movie. I don't know how you did. What was the hardest creature effect that you had to deal with?
I think the one that intimidated us or had us most worried was the Queen. Because, you know, we all know how to make creatures in suits, and H.R. Giger had brilliantly established the look of the alien in the first film, so you know that's going to work. That all those concepts are going to work. We just had to make an alien warrior suit that was a little more stunt friendly, that could have a greater dynamic range to it. And that's actually why the warrior does not have the clear dome on its head, like Ridley Scott's version. We were planning to do that, and Jim looked at it and said, "I think these things are going to shatter, because I'm going to have these people rolling all over the place." And he said, "Lose it." And that was that. There was back in the time when there was no studio involvement. You didn't have like, you know, a CC list of people who had to sign off on the director's decision. He would just go, "I don't like that, and we won't do it." "All right, that's fine." And so you could move forward in a very efficient way because the guy knew what he was doing, and Stan Winston knew what he was doing.
Were there not studio notes during production looking at?
I was never aware of that. Now, granted, I don't know why I would have been aware of it, but it's also at a time where you know, you just didn't have, like, I don't even think we had a fax machine at that point. We may have had some bleary faxes. We'd take Polaroids of some sculpture we're doing, and we'd put it in the Xerox machine, and then you'd run that through the fax machine. And Jim would go, "I can't tell what the hell I'm looking at. I'll either mold it or I'm coming out and going to look at it." You know, so you had a lot of direct access to him, which was wonderful. But that Queen was the one that we were worried about because nobody had done anything like that before.
How tall was the Queen? I remember being really impressed when I saw
I think
it.
her face stood about 12 feet off the ground, and then but the way it's shot, people think she's 40 feet tall.
Well, it ripped me in half. You can see the height.
Yeah, well, she's up.
And I had to act backwards too. which
Yeah,
is
you
really
had a
weird.
lot of. We put you through a lot of bad stuff, Lance. I just want to once again publicly apologize.
Lance, you want to